One of my favorite frameworks that kind of have come up through this work is this idea of how would you know? What would look different? Right, is the way I phrase it. And what I mean by that is if you think you are right about something, if you think you have clarity on a situation and how it's playing out, right, or some person and what their motivations are, whatever it is, right, a test of that, a way to check do we have biases, do we have blind spots, is our subconscious, spinning a narrative that isn't true, are we avoiding some inconvenient truth, is to say, how would I know? What would it look like if it was the way I think it's not, right? And I find it to be really powerful. So I have a current situation in my personal life that I thought I would work through using that framework here because it seems applicable. So apologies up front, because as I go through this, I'm going to do it live. I've thought about it a little bit beforehand, but there may be some pauses and some thinking because, you really have to kind of process it. So situation, give you the context quick. So I personally love Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I talk about it all the time in these videos. I love it for a whole host of reasons, but one of which is the skills it teaches you and kind of the confidence it can bring and things like that. And I'll touch a little bit more on that. But the context is my son asked to start doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu maybe about a year or two ago now. And it's not lost on me that he probably asked initially because he saw how much I loved it and it looked kind of cool. And he thought like, yeah, I want to do that. So he's been doing it for a while. As of late, the last couple months, he's been pushing more and more to quit and saying that he didn't want to do it anymore. He doesn't really like it. He doesn't enjoy it. So the situation is, how do I handle that? What do I do in this, in this situation? So let me give a little bit more detail. He's tried lots of different stuff, right? My view has been try out different things. He's done t-ball, he's done soccer, he's done flag football, he's done art classes, he's done theater classes, all different things, swim classes, etc., karate. And a number of those he's quit because he just didn't like them. They just didn't seem to be for him. And he's not particularly athletic. Sports doesn't seem to be his main thing. He seems to be more artistic, whereas I historically am more of a sports fan and a little bit more athletic. So I've been very cognizant of that and been aware of that and trying not to push him towards things I really like because I like them, right? So football, as an example, is something that I've always loved. I played it my whole childhood. When he wanted to quit flag football, I said, okay, right? It might not be for you. That's okay. So a little bit of context there. He also seems to have a low tolerance for discomfort, for things that he doesn't have to do, right? So schoolwork, stuff that he's given, homework, he'll complain about it, as I imagine most kids would, but he does it because he knows he has to. There's things that he really enjoys, right? And sometimes that may bring a little bit of discomfort, but he loves it, right? So he's okay with that. But things that he doesn't have to do, that he doesn't particularly enjoy, he has a very low tolerance for that discomfort. And I say very low because I think all of us have an inclination not to do things that bring discomfort or are hard and we don't have to do. But his seems to be a little bit higher level, right? If the teacher hands out extra math homework to be done and it's just extra credit, you don't have to do it. He doesn't want to do it, right? He avoids things like that. Sometimes he'll say like, oh, I want to draw a poster and I want to make this thing. And then he decides to just watch TV instead. So I say all that because I think that's something that's important to me that we kind of address that issue and he learns that skill. But I think it's also a little bit of evidence of the tolerance I have for not forcing him to do things he doesn't want to do, right? He has ample opportunity to opt out of things from time to time. So I say all that, right, in the way of context. So my belief is, right, the belief that I've formed, that I'm testing here, is that when it comes to jiu-jitsu and the fact that he wants to quit, I don't think he should quit based on this. It's only 1 hour a week, so it's not a big commitment. He has this issue of quitting things that he doesn't like and just has that low tolerance for discomfort. So maybe it's not his favorite thing, but allowing him to quit again seems like it's just feeding into that and enabling that. And this is an opportunity to address it. Most importantly, though, as I said in the beginning, I think jiu-jitsu is unique. It's not like football. It's not like, swimming or t-ball or whatever it is. To me, as a young boy who's, going to go through school and all that, the skills it teaches you, not just about how to, do hard things and build that tolerance, but the skills of actually knowing a skill of how to defend yourself, I think is super important. I think having the confidence to know going throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, and later in your life, that if you run into a situation where somebody is bullying you or you feel physically threatened in some way, to have the confidence to say, I am not afraid of this situation because I know how to defend myself, right? To not have to feel helpless at the whim of a bully or somebody who's just a fucking asshole. That's huge, I think, right? That freedom that allows you to feel like, hey, I can just be myself. I don't have to be self-conscious because I'm worried if I act the way I want to act, somebody else might think that's stupid and try and make fun of me. And then I can't, it really bothers me and hurts me because I'm afraid of that person. And if I keep doing it, maybe they keep picking on me and they beat me up or whatever it is, right? To me, that's horrible. That's a horrible feeling. And I don't want him to have that. And I think jiu-jitsu is a solution to that. Joe Rogan, who's somebody I listen to a lot and who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, talks about it well, specific to that point, that what he loves about knowing jiu-jitsu is if he gets into an altercation, by and large, he's going to be in control of how much violence and what violence happens, right? So if he's at a bar and some drunk guy bumps into him and he doesn't know how to protect himself, Joe Rogan, that drunk guy might be in control of how violent this gets. And he might be an asshole and he might do some real damage to you. Whereas from his perspective, knowing jiu-jitsu, he can control that, right? He can just disarm the guy, kind of diffuse the situation, hold him down, protect himself, but nobody has to really get hurt. So that's the spirit of it. So that's why I feel like, hey, I'm right here. I think he should continue to do it for those reasons, right? It's only an hour a week. It's going to help him build that muscle and tolerance around discomfort, and it's such a valuable skill. But how would I know? What would look different? What would it look like if my mind, my subconscious, was spinning a narrative, convincing me of like, yeah, you have 3 great reasons here. So you should go do this, but I have a blind spot. I'm not thinking clearly. I'm not thinking big L logically. Well, one of the things I'll tie back to is this idea that I've let him quit other stuff when it comes to his math homework, when it comes to football, things that I care about. I understand not everything is for him and there doesn't have to be a set playbook. So he doesn't have to do those things. And I've never forced him to. This is the only one, right? So I get that. But at the same time, I probably love and am passionate about jiu-jitsu more than most things. So maybe that explains that. How else would I know? What else would look different if this was a case of me making a bad choice, of me forcing him into something that he really didn't want to do? I think another thing is I wouldn't be open to feedback. And in this case, I've tried to seek it out. I've asked my brother, I've asked my wife, I've asked my mom to an extent, I've asked my sister-in-law. I'm trying to use instruments to check and see, right? If this was a situation where I was lying to myself and my subconscious was just trying to kind of spin a narrative to get what I wanted, I don't think I would seek those things out. Again, it's not proof in and of itself, but I think it's somewhat evidence, right, of how it might look different if this was going the other way. Perhaps the thing I'm struggling with most is what would look different, right, if I was doing that. I think one of the things that would look different, or at least on paper should, is that I would not actually entertain the idea of him quitting. And I'm not sure that I could check that box. By that I mean, when I really think about it deep down, I don't want him to quit. And that's the thing that's making me think maybe I'm being irrational here. Like, I'm trying to think of the scenario where I would say, you know what, you're right, you should quit. And I'm struggling to do it. And I think that's the one sign that's like, hey, that's what would look different, but that's happening here, right? So that doesn't look different. That looks the same. And the whole idea of this exercise is it might not give you a definitive answer, right? But it at least points you in a direction. It gives you some indication of how logical or rational are you being. And I think my homework from all of this is to focus on that one. What would it take for me to say, yes, you can quit? Would I actually entertain that possibility? And if my answer is always no, odds are I'm being illogical, right? And then I know.